thing to note is that it's not going to be perfect. In fact, that first week is going to be such a culture shock to us all that, you know, any social emotional learning or connections that you can make with your kiddos, you guys know, that's what it's all going to be about. And what greater topic than to talk about group work. So that code, if you're looking for the code, is VCVJGG. And I'll drop it in the chat too, just for convenience here. And so often when I do a Pear Deck, I drop it in the chat too, so that if a student is, you know, has slower internet, or for some reason if they get disconnected, they can always scroll back to be able to see that code. And let me know if you need any help. I'm going to get us started. I have to go back to the beginning here, but feel free. The code is VCVJGG, and if you need it, again, check out the chat or feel free to ask me too. So we're going to make small group work, and we're going to do it in a very you know, in very difficult times, especially as a lot of our classrooms are going to look very different from what we're used to. And I know my students always switch seats and are never staying seated. And, you know, with CDC guidelines, that's really going to shift in some big ways. So how are we going to do that? Well, first things first, folks, I always like to start my lessons with some sort of social emotional question, you know, asking them for some highs and lows. So I figured what better question than to ask you guys, how are you feeling about hybrid right now? And the wonderful thing about Pear Deck is that it is anonymous in the projector mode, so no one will know what you're saying. I see Mr. Manning's in the foods room. Another user tip, I have my Zoom screen is minimized, so it's smaller, so I can see the strip of people, you know, at the top. And I love scrolling through, so when students are working on a question, it's a great way to be able to see those lovely faces and to see your lovely faces. And so here I can see mixed, unsure, ugh, overwhelmed, ooh, let's go. You know, I think change is hard. I bet you at the end of that first week, on that first Friday, we are all going to go home and pass out from exhaustion and things like that. And so, you know, this is a really interesting comment about how do I do it all? I think the most important thing for us to remember is to utilize what's working now. And Troy Bruley actually made a really great comment to me about encouraging teachers to start synchronously, even if it's just for a few days, to be able to start all on the same page. Once we're all on the same page and we check in with our students, you know, for their social emotional well-being, then we can start to integrate some of these different group assignments that can be informal to formal. So today we are going to review some of the guidelines and reflect on those implications. And I think Neil's meeting on Monday is going to give us some more specifics about what our classrooms need to look like. So just start to keep that in mind. We're going to review some of the tools and strategies that we have and discuss how we can monitor and give students feedback. Specifically, feedback for students who are in the room, and at any given time, about 60% of our students won't be in the room, and some never in the room at all. So we're going to talk about that as well. And just so you guys know, when I use Pear Deck, I love using the takeaways feature, which is a feature you have to turn on. But what it does is at the end of the session, you'll get an email from me with a Google Doc that has all of these slides in it. It'll have all of your responses in it, and it will have all of the hyperlinks that I've included in this presentation. So it's a really great way, especially for our at-home students, to be able to give them something that they can reflect on. And plus all of their work, they know that you're able to see it, and then they're able to see it too. So any text boxes that I've included, if you want to jot yourself a personal note or an idea, know that you're going to see those takeaways again. So speaking of takeaways, I want to give you my takeaways first. Instead of ending with my conclusion or, you know, my big tips, I actually wanted to get it started with that so that you guys, your brains are thinking about, you know, what are we trying to wrap our heads around? So just remember, group work is always hard. If we think back to the good old days in 2019, when we were able to look at our students face to face, all of them, we would know there would always be a group or two in group projects where one person wasn't pulling their work or pulling their weight, or they weren't, you know, fully contributing to the experience. So group work is always hard, but it can still be done. Pre-assigning groups is going to be a little bit more helpful for tracing purposes and also accountability purposes. I know for me, I teach seniors, and very rarely in, you know, 2019 would I assign groups. I typically let them pick their groups. But for this experience, we might want to think about being a little more purposeful and a little clearer with our groupings. You can always give students a survey to note who they might want to work with, and that's a great way to build rapport and relationships with them too, is to gather that information from them. Remember, keep group work simple and consistent. Smaller groups might be more effective than larger groups, especially at first. And here's my biggest takeaway. Pairing students in class with a student or students who are at home can make everyone feel included. So if you want to be in every breakout room at the same time, have one student who's sitting in your class make a Google Hangout with two other students who are maybe at home and then permanently remote, and allow them to, you know, to collaborate together. That's going to make everybody feel included and everybody feel like they have a voice and access to you. So just a thing to think about when it works out well for your particular group. And you are looking at a deck here. And so just showing you kind of some examples of different decks that I use to kind of keep kids accountable and see their work. So now let's get started. Now that you've heard the ending, let's start at the beginning here. So how do we promote small group work and collaboration in our classroom? What does that look like so far for you guys? Share your ideas or your thoughts from what you've experienced so far. Even if you haven't done much with group work, maybe share an idea, something you've been thinking about. And what's nice is on Pear Deck, I have the teacher dashboard open in one screen, and I have the student projector view that's screened through Zoom. So I can see your responses. I can star individual answers. So when I go to show, I can just have one answer responded, or I can show everybody's. I love it. Doing a breakout room with the Google slide, creating a shareable doc so you can see everybody's work at the same time. Maybe you haven't yet. When you've tried it, people haven't talked. So that's a great point. Let's try to see if we can find ways to get them talking. Give them specific discussion questions. Bigger groups sometimes help when you know you've got a couple of students that won't talk. Each person has a role. Hangouts has been really great. Okay. You haven't been monitoring participation, and I think sometimes that's okay. And so hopefully for this person, I've got a couple of ideas that might really help you out with in a very simplistic way. All right. So pre-assigning breakout rooms, you can't do that on a Chrome operating system. And so I'm gonna call you out. Is that Manning? Yeah, Manning. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not possible to do it on our current devices. But what you can do is if you have groups in your class, you can make multiple Google Meets, and I'm going to show you that in a little bit. And so you just say, here's the groups, go to your corresponding Google Meet, and you can actually have them all in Zoom and have them all in Google Meet at the same time. So that's one workaround that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. All right. So now I'm going to get out, according to the Center for Disease Control, classrooms need to have space and seating desks that are at least 6 feet apart when feasible. Desks need to be facing the same direction. So especially my English peeps and, my world language people, we love group work. We love when they are looking at each other and moving seats and getting up. And unfortunately, at least for the time being, we need to have a specific seating chart and keep them facing the same direction. So how are we going to tackle that? Well, again, thank goodness for the technology that we do have that can make some of these creative things still happen. But I think the big thing is we can talk about a few tech tools that can help support us in this process. The most important thing and my biggest advice, and you guys know I love everything tech, but I also love I only love technology when it's purposeful. So I don't want you to walk away from this session thinking, now I have to learn 12 different types of tech tools. If you are comfortable with a Google Doc and you want to keep using Google Docs, maybe you can use Google Docs in a couple of different ways. So one piece of technology to achieve your different learning targets. And so that's what I want to help you with today. You want to think again, what are you trying to do and what do you want students to learn before you think about pairing the tech? And then again, it's how are we going to get students to achieve these goals? So first question is, what are some of your concerns or questions about how to make group work happen in a hybrid model? If you want to drop that in the comment box. The other fun thing about Pear Deck is I know who's responded, who hasn't responded yet, whether they're in my classroom or they are remote, so I can kind of see what everybody is doing at the same time. Can you use Zoom without the sound? Yes, absolutely. There's no current parameters on what we have to do or what we have to take attendance every day for our kids, but really the district is giving us a lot of latitude in terms of how we want to structure our classes, if synchronous or asynchronous is going to work best, so you can use Zoom without the sound. How to manage students that are live in my class. Well, again, I think that's where group work and groupings can become really powerful and important. CDC protocols, especially in labs. Yeah, I think that's going to be a challenge. Looking at who would be a lab person in here. Maybe, yeah, definitely Mike. Definitely Mike's people here who are live, who are our PE people. Yay for you guys. We'll figure it out. Attendance is so spotty. My thoughts on attendance and something that I'm going to do every single day is very similar to answer that question. Similar to what I did during remote learning in the spring. I had one Google form and it was posted on my homepage and I had them fill out the exact same form every day. So I still will try to do attendance live. But you know what? Things are going to get crazy and I'm not going to be perfect at it. But if I have them filling out a same basic form and they're responsible for doing it every day, it'll be time-stamped. It's on them. It's their responsibility. It'll be a habit. And it's a reference that I can go back and look at any time. So if you're concerned about attendance, doing something as simple as a Google form is going to be a lot easier to look at than even going into Zoom and looking at that history and things like that. So that would be my recommendation. Yeah. Seeing and hearing people is going to be challenging, specifically and depending on the type of Chromebook the kid has. You know, our kids have not great devices, so that's the challenge. Can we do skits? Oh my gosh, I hope you do skits. I think that'll be a lot of fun. I actually did a group speech yesterday. So they did a peanut butter and jelly impromptu speech, and they had 10 minutes to do their speech. They went into breakout rooms, then they delivered their speeches live, and the kids, it was hilarious. They did a great job, and you know, not everybody's technology works, but it was really cool. Yes, you can do skits. Yes, you can do creative things. So I love that. So here are some of my favorite tools to promote collaboration. Feel free, there is a link here. If you want to add something cool, like an idea that you have, I tend to stick to mostly Google Docs. I go low tech. Sometimes I use Padlet. When I want group work and I want it to be visible, I stick with the classics and keep it easy. You can utilize Google Hangouts. Students can create as many Google Hangouts as they want. That's a quick and fast way to get face-to-face connection, especially with people at home. But I would say, again, stick to the classics because they tend to work the best. So I'm looking at tools for collaboration. Besides Google Docs and Padlet, what is your favorite tech tool for collaboration? There's Mike Manning. Look at Mike Manning. He even signed in. Mike, boo. Pear Deck is better than Nearpod.
I just know how to use it, and I don't know how I signed in, but all right.
I love it. Pear Deck, Flipgrid, for sure. Beth and Sharon, I'd love to hear, how are you using Flipgrid for collaboration?
Well, today I listed, they had to decide which characters from The Great Gatsby they would want in their friendship circle and which they wouldn't want in their friendship circle. So my Flipgrid listed, the 7 or 8 characters, and they had to state their opinion, embed something from the story as evidence, and include a citation. And then they had to find people they disagreed with and comment on theirs.
That is incredible. I don't want any of them in my friend group, so I don't know how I'd answer that question, but I love that.
I know. Well, we're only on chapter 2, so they don't know all the details, but a lot of it was, well, I'd kind of want George, but he's not very, he doesn't stand up for himself, so it was neat.
Nice. That is amazing. Beth, how about you?
Yeah, we do Flipgrid in the language classes a lot because my problem is now that we used to let them work together on Flipgrids and, they would be filming together. So I'm looking at how can I use Flipgrid in a way that it's not individual, because since we've been remote, I've just been using it where they film themselves individually and they can respond to each other, but they really love it when they, can do a skit together and film that and share it with everybody. And so I'm looking for something that would allow them to be a little bit more collaborative in the creative part of it instead of just responding.
So WeVideo actually has a collaboration feature where you can assign groups and they can collaborate and share their projects with others. So WeVideo is a little more complicated to use, especially in the group format. But if your students are really creative, you could offer that as an option. And if they're less techie, I think Flipgrid is a really safe way for them to record a group of videos onto a single topic. You can also make students co-pilots of topics. So if you want them to be able to moderate, you can add them as a co-pilot to a specific topic. So then they'll be able to control their own grids.
Okay.
So, and if you want more details on that, we can walk through that. WeVideo is, like I said, it's probably a level 2. It's a little more advanced in terms of technology, but students we do have accounts for our students, so they just need to use their D155 account, and it can be a really helpful tool.
Steph, if I could ask, you'd mentioned that that Mike had signed in, and I think I did too because I didn't type my name. So how do we get the kids to do that when using Padlet? Because I find that they've had to type them in, I think.
In the upper right-hand corner, if they click on this circle, they should be able to sign in. My guess is, did you use Padlet today?
I might have opened it. Yeah, maybe this morning.
So that might be why you were still signed in, or just signed in from a previous session. But if they click the upper right, then they'll be able to sign in.
So when I give them the link, does that sign them in, or they have to open the Padlet and then go sign in?
They most likely will have to open the Padlet and then go sign in.
Okay, thank you.
It's kind of hit or miss. Some kids are always logged in, others are always logged out. So my first direction that I put underneath the title of the Padlet is in all caps 3 times, sign in, sign in, sign in, because it is annoying when you get a lot of anonymouses.
Thank you. Yeah, good suggestion.
I always tell them too, I have to be able to see their name. So if they don't sign, if they see it's anonymous, they have to put their name in if they want to get credit, or, you know, I always say, I'm using this for attendance, so put your name, and then they always put their name. All right, how do I break them into groups? Well, Flippity is my absolute favorite, favorite tool to group students. Can you click on participants and give me a yes or a no? So click on participants, click yes if you've used Flippity before, or no if you have not used Flippity before. So many no's. Oh my goodness, friends. Well, let me give you the gift of Flippity here. And Flippity is a website that has a bunch of different tools, specifically a group, a random name picker. So I can use this spinner and I can identify Rob Bonkoski. Hey, Rob. And I definitely do this in class. I could say, hey, Rob, can you unmute and answer that first question? And the kids, they see it on the screen. They're praying that they're not going to be asked to unmute, but I do that kind of to Socratically call on kids. They think it's fun. Then I can say, all right, well, I'm going to divide you into teams. Here are 3 teams. Here's your squad for today. Please go to group number 1, go to Google Meet number 1, go to Google Meet number 2, or Google Meet number 3, and then they'll click on the right Google Meet, and that's one way Mike and anybody who is looking to do a better job of mixing up and shuffling kids, because Zoom puts them in alphabetical order most of the time because they're always muted. Note that when you guys unmute, it does reshuffle the order in which you appear in Zoom. So if you want your students to be shuffled on Zoom, you have to tell them to unmute and everybody talk at the same time, and then I'll shuffle your students when you push them to breakout rooms. Super weird. I don't know why it's not easier, but that's how you shuffle breakout rooms on Zoom. So, but this is really nice because when I break students up into groups, then I can go up to Austin's screenshot. I can take a screenshot of this and I can post this in Canvas. So when they forget, oh, who was in my group today? I have a record. It's great for any of those CDC guidelines in terms of having a record of who worked with who in case we had to do contact tracing. And so this is just a really nice way to, you know, capture with awesome screenshot. Then I can use my typing tool and say, this was second period on 10-2.
Steph, I missed it. How did our names get in Flippity?
So I haven't gone there yet.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, I just wanted to do the survey to see if you had all used Flippity before. I wouldn't walk through it, but since you guys have said that, hey, I haven't really used Flippity before, I'm going to go a little bit through the basics here. So Flippity.net is this amazing resource of, you can make a word search, you can make a word scramble, it's got fun, goofy games, you can make certificates, do a bracket, all sorts of things on Flippity. The one that I use the most is the random name picker, and I can even open it up in Google Drive. My Google Drive is a mess right now, guys, don't judge. Okay, so I have this Flippity doc, and you guys make a copy of it in order to build. And you see, I've got second period since my students, and I just exported this from Skyward. I've got my College of Lake County students. I have all of my students in case I wanted to use second, third, and fourth period. I've got all their emails right here, and my different activities. So I've got different tabs with different rosters. Now, in the demo tab, that's where I'm going to paste your names. So you can see that I pasted your guys' names from that small group list right here. I pasted your names, and now I click on Get the Link, and it's all computer programmed for me. I am not a Google Sheets like coder. I'm not good at that, but Flippity does it for you. So how do you do that yourself? Well, you have to go to flippity.net. You're going to press Padlet, make a copy, and I save it in a really convenient spot on in my Google Drive so it's easy to access. And then you can add a tab into your I'm Rob here, I want to paste sing choir. I would paste my list of students here so that when I needed to, I could copy their names, paste in the demo, and then get the link. And I do have a video, so if you want a video that walks through that a little more slowly, just shoot me an email and I will send that to you. The only thing with Flippity is you do have to publish it once. So if I were to hit this, it's actually, so sorry, it's not published. So if I go here, you only ever have to do this once. I go to File, Publish to the web. So my guess is you'll probably forget. I totally did too. And then I was like, oh yeah, I have to file and publish it to the web. And like that, I set it up once a semester at the very beginning of the semester. I just make little tabs for my rosters. So it's super quick and super, so if I don't have time during periods, I can just, kids even watch me do it. I'm like, okay, I got to get you in Flippity, and they know what we're going to do. And again, I use that tool almost every single day with my students. And so as a result, they know what to expect with it. So any questions on Flippity? Again, if you want a more detailed, a slower walkthrough of it, feel free to shoot me an email later on. But first things first, friends, we are going to have a debate, and we are going to go waffles versus pancakes. So if you get put in group 1, that means you love waffles. Just go with it. If you get put in group 2, you love pancakes. So I'm about to push you guys into breakout rooms. You have 1 minute to decide your argument on why waffles or pancakes are superior. So on your marks, wait, give me the thumbs up if you know what you're doing. Group 1 is waffles. Group 2 is pancakes. Love those thumbs up. Thank you for the nonverbals. I will see you in 1 minute. You're back. All right, nose goes. My waffle group, who's gonna share out? Ready, nose goes. I'm picking on the new guy, Matt.
Cozy.
That's fine. We said because it holds syrup and butter, there's a little bit of a combo of crunchy and soft. And also the waffle maker itself, like that just excites people. Whether you're on like a trip or you have one yourself, you bust that out and people get excited about that.
All right, thank you, sir.
Sure.
All right, my pancake people, nose goes. Up, Rob. Rob, why are pancakes superior?
I led with, I like blueberry pancakes, and whoever heard of blueberry waffles? You don't add blueberries to waffles. So blueberry pancakes are a favorite of mine. Patty said she likes it because you can put the butter in between the pancakes and it melts nicely. So we thought that was an advantage as well. Those were our 2.
Yeah, again, I know it's hard to get them talking. I tend to start class with like those short informal group conversations. When you push them out and you start them that way, it at least wakes them up a little bit. Again, anything to get them talking, I think, especially as we're, grouping is important. Matt, did you have something?
Yeah, so is that something that you would continue to do, is like welcome work in the hybrid format as they walk in, and then also for the people at home as they enter the Zoom or whatever they're going to be doing?
Absolutely. And again, especially those people at home, they're going to want to have connections. And so pushing them into breakout rooms can be really, really helpful. So great. All right, keep moving here. Sharing assignments with students. Something I want you guys to be thinking about too is how are you going to share, assignments with students in class and on Zoom? If your current agenda system is working well for you or how you're presenting and starting, my suggestion is to keep it consistent, because that's what students know to expect. And so the other thing you can be thinking about too, and Charlene did a great job in our demo for the humanities department, is, she had a question already posted. So when kids are walking in, they could jump into that question. A Pear Deck is really great because you can have it in student pace mode. So I'm going to share my screen again. I turn on student pace mode, and if I do, it's as easy as toggling a switch. Now you guys, you'll be able to see, if you try to advance your Pear Deck slides, you'll see that you have control to go anywhere on the slide as much as possible. So whether it be, you know, pull everywhere or Pear Deck or, you know, any Nearpod, any sort of tech tool, if you've got a tech tool where students can work asynchronously, that's a great way to get some kids started and have another group where you can have one-on-one time with another group of students, whether they're in the classroom or not. You can also create groups on Canvas. Can you guys click on or actually, can you, has anybody used groups in Canvas yet? Is there a, can you unmute?
Groups in Canvas? Oh, yes, I have.
All right, Mike, what can you tell us about groups in Canvas?
I tried to let the kids pick their own groups, and that was disastrous because we didn't really know each other. It was a long-term 3-week project, and I had found the feature and was kind of going through it, and it wasn't a good plan. So I ended up doing a Google form to get their preference, and then I put them in groups. But what's been nice is over these last 3 weeks, every time we've had a group assignment, I can tie it all together, so only one person has to turn it in. When I grade it, the grade goes out to all 3 students. I guess that's been the feature I've liked the most, is it's really cleaned up things for me in my grade book when I typically do group work, and it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah, so group work in Canvas, you can set up pre-assigned groups, or you can have Canvas randomly assign groups for your students. This is really nice for group discussions because sometimes, like, I have 3 sections of the same course, so if you have a lot of sections of the same course, having 72 students on a discussion thread is overwhelming. But if you break it into groups, it can be a little more appealing and a little more personable. So you can see that I've started breaking up my groups into my A and B day students. And I'm going to break it up into A and B day, periods 2, periods 3, and periods 4. And so you can see that I have groups of students that are grouped together. And when I go to create an assignment or a discussion, I can select groups, and then I can utilize these groups so that only A-day students are working with A-day students, or B-day students are working with B-day students, and you can divide it any way. In 2019, when I was teaching humanities, I created groups, or I had students pick groups, and I built them into Canvas for one project, and the kids loved their groups so much they just stayed with the same group. So with every group project, I had a tab that was called Art Project, and the kids just used that same group again. So like Manning is saying, if you've got a group that works, and you're going to have multiple group assignments, you can build that out into Canvas, but then you can reuse those groups time and time again. And if you don't want to assign groups and do it manually, you can have them pick as well. And there is a video that goes into a lot more detail about groups in Canvas, which you're going to be able to watch and you'll have access to in the takeaways. Zoom breakout rooms. Now we've all been using Zoom breakout rooms. It's unfortunate that it doesn't really work the way that we want on a Chrome operating system, but it's a nice way to just get kids talking. And again, if you do some sort of silly icebreaker, it doesn't have to be content specific to get them excited and interested in at least unmuting, even if it's only for a second or 2. Here's another thing. So this is a suggestion, going back to Manning, what you said at the beginning of how do you pre-assign breakout groups. Let's say I had used Flippity and I closed out of it, so I'm not going to open it up again. But let's say I had broken you guys into groups and you were in groups 1 through 6. These groups right here, if you click on group 1, it'll open up directly to a Google Meet. And so you guys could join and jump into that group. So I pre-created, I only did 2, but you could do as many as you wanted, which is why these are in red. And then I had a doc. On this doc, it's got the directions and questions. This is an editable doc, so I had to change my share settings. And this is what I always forget to do, and it's super easy to forget to do. And you have to change so that anyone with D155 can edit, so students can write on it. So now I've got I've got prearranged groups. I tell them, hey, click on group 1 through 6. They click on that, they can get straight into their Google Meet, and they can get straight into the document. And so if they have access to the slide, if this was in my agenda, very easy for them to click and navigate, and also easy for you to be able to navigate towards them too. The disadvantage is if they create the Meet, you probably won't have the link unless they send it to you. If you create the link, yes, you have to do a little more setup ahead of time, but then you'll be able to jump into every group. Now, if you have students paired with in class, paired with at-home kids, you could be in every room at the same time if there's one representative in the room for you to communicate with. So all different ways to structure. And again, what's wonderful about this is they can work in groups. They don't have to leave their seats. They're still having that face-to-face connection, even though it's behind a screen, so not ideal, but at least they're getting to communicate and they have some accountability when you add a doc to have them make their learning visible. And that's the biggest thing with group work. How are they making their learning visible? So expert tip, again, if one student's in the room, you're essentially in all the rooms at the same time.
Steph, are the kids bringing headphones to help with that? And I apologize if you said some, I'm multitasking, but.
Oh, no, I think Rebecca has pushed out in whatever communication that has gone home that all students need to have headphones.
Okay.
And if there are students with, need with free and reduced lunch and things like that, I think that the district is going to try and have some available to students who might need those services. So good question. It wouldn't hurt for us to remind them because, they forget to charge their Chromebooks. They forget, to bring pencils and all sorts of different things. So add it to the list of, hey, you need your headphones.
So Steph, I have a question. So if I'm loving Zoom now, but really realizing that they can't all be on Zoom while we're in class, then it looks like the Google Meets or Google Hangouts is something that I need to shift to so that they can do their group work?
Yeah, so if you use Zoom in class, they have to mute their microphones and their sound. So then you only can have one sound source. Otherwise, you're going to get feedback, but you can still use Zoom. Google Meet, I think, actually works better for that. And if I have multiple meets in the same room, I don't get the same feedback. So I would, if you're going to use multiple platforms, I think Google Meet is honestly a little bit easier for us to utilize.
Okay. Is Google Meet different than Google Hangout?
Yes. So Meet is now paid. And so we have Meet. Our students have Hangouts, which is the biggest difference is we can record and kick people out of Hangouts. They are out of Meets. They can't do the same thing in Hangout.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Other
you.
questions? Yeah. All right. Some more ideas on crowdsourcing student work. So, Beth, you asked that question right before the slide. Have them mute their sound so you avoid feedback. But Google Forms are really great. Canvas. You can use, remember Lightspeed. That clunky thing does still work. So you could use that to be able to see student screens. But really, I like going simple. If I want to make learning visible and I want to see students work, I either really just use a Google Doc that I change the share settings so that everyone can write on, or I use Padlet. And so these really kind of, simple ways we're really comfortable with are a great way to have accountability for kids. All right, I'm going to turn on student pace mode. So if you're alphabet A through K, you're going to go to slide 18. If you're alphabet with L through Z, go to slide 19. So I turned on student pace mode, so you should be able to navigate to whatever slide that you want now. And I have the same information on both slides, but I hyperlinked, I included a web URL, 2 different types of activities. So one is a Google form and one is a Google Doc. And so if you wanted to differentiate based on if students are in the classroom or they're remote, you could have them go to different slides and do different activities. It's an easy way to keep everybody kind of on the same page, but also create that differentiation. And so again, if any of you want to toggle back and forth between these two slides, you'll be able to see that I app smashed or I included in different types of activities. You could split kids in between A and B groups. You could just have them choose. If you want to be synchronous, you're going to go to this slide. If you're going to be asynchronous, you're going to go to this slide. Giving students choice makes them more invested and gives them more autonomy over their learning. And let's face it, none of us feel like we're in control of much right now. So this is one way to kind of empower your students a little bit too. So now I'm going to bring you guys back together. I'm going to you know what? I didn't turn you on student pace mode, so I'm sorry. You should have yelled at me and said, Steph, it didn't go through. Essentially, yeah, I could have turned that on.
I just assumed I didn't know what I was doing. I'm literally like sweating right now. It's like,
I love it. And again, Patty, I know in any of my sessions, you guys know I throw 1,000 things at you and I'm hoping one thing sticks. Or one thing stays maybe in your mind and you're like, Steph, I have to create a one-on-one. Let's chat. I would love to do that too. So I turned on student pace mode now, never mind. I turned that off, but you're probably wondering, Steph, how do you do that? How do you get two screens in one? And that's why I love Pear Deck so much, is because I can app smash, which is just a really fancy way of saying I can utilize the best features of a couple of different web tools and really make it an experience for my students. So when you're in Pear Deck, you go to ask the question, you click on website, and then you can paste in a web URL, and then the preview pops up right here. And then you're able to see, what students are gonna see on their screen. And I'm going to start going a little quicker here because we've hit our mark here. So another way to give students voice and choice. On this slide, if you click on this slide, which might not have been active if I changed it over, I could hyperlink in different Google Meets right here. And by hyperlinking different Meets here, I can say, I want to work on my own. I want to work quietly on a discussion board. So I'm giving students choices on, hey, I want to do a discussion board silently on Canvas, or I want to work actively in a live group. So by giving your students choice here, then they could click on and they could determine where they want to go. And so they're picking their own groups. Another thing to think about. Padlet makes group work visible too. I already talked about that. You can create a shelf. So this is the shelf view on Padlet. So students based on their group can post their work and it's all in one spot for you. Another great way to keep them accountable for their learning. And so other ways to provide feedback, permanent clipboard, speed grader, Moat, these are all different ways to provide feedback. Moat only works in Google Suites, so if you're using Google Docs, and I know Rob loves Moat. Rosie also used it a ton in the spring. Permanent clipboard is a way to have a comment library. Really cool thing to check out if you do a lot of writing, grading, or SpeedGrader. The more you use SpeedGrader, I actually really, really like it now that I've used it for a while. You can also have written, voice, and video comments as well. So feedback, another great way to save time on feedback, especially with group work, is just a screencast. If you've got students who are working on a single doc and some of them are in the room and some of them are at home, you can screencast. So if I wanted to, let's say I had Rob sitting in the room with me and we're still far apart, but I'm grading his group's project. I can screencast so Rob can hear me giving him a grade, and his friends at home, I can screencast our conversation so I can record our conversation and email it to his friends at home. Feedback. Now that you've viewed a few tools for providing feedback, what's a great way that you want to provide feedback to your students, whether they are face-to-face or remote? Well, I won't make you do the Flipgrid for time's sake, but I just want you to see how easy it is to get students to do Flipgrid while you're live in a lesson. So I stop sharing so I can look at your faces. One of my favorite things to do with my students is I do once a week on Monday, I do a check-in. On Mondays, I typically do a Pear Deck. So I do a live synchronous session, and this is going to be my plan for my Mondays. I'm going to do a live synchronous Monday because Monday is going to be that weird, you have some kids in, some kids out every other time. I'm going to do a live synchronous session using Pear Deck, And then at the end of my session, I'm going to have them do a flip grid. So whether they're in the classroom or at home, I can hear all voices. And I do that once a week. And you can save time by watching it at 2 times speed. So that saves some grading time too. Now, we're going to skip here. Kids like to draw. Anytime you can use a Pear Deck drawing feature, they do an amazing job with that. So that's something to look at as well. Think about assessment. You know, whether it's an exit ticket, when it comes to student assessment, I know it's going to be really hard to balance multiple groups. So a Google form is a clear and consistent way to get feedback from your students or have them complete some sort of quiz or exit survey. Thinking about, oh yeah.
Sorry. So on my, I don't see your screen. Should I see it on this one?
No, I unshared. I'll reshare, sorry.
Or maybe I should have minimized Zoom. Sorry. Was it there? There we go. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry. Other things, just trying to go fast, is consider how you'll assess students. You know, finding ways to automate and provide opportunities to work with groups, like doing a flipped lesson. So recording your grammar lesson, recording your language lesson, or recording your workout, and then having students watch it on Edpuzzle is a great way to free you up so that you can work with smaller groups too. So this doesn't just go with how are we going to get students to be in groups. You're probably going to want to work with small groups as well. And so if you can automate or give other students things to work on while you're working with a specific subset of students, whether that's in your classroom or remote, Edpuzzle is a really great tool for assessment to get feedback from all students, especially if you're asynchronous. And so here's a quick one-pager that kind of goes through the steps that we've talked about. And as you notice or you may have noticed that the slides were color-coded. So I go through a step-by-step process in a one-page document with a ton of links. So you're going to have access to this in your takeaways. And if you're someone who likes paper and printing things out, feel free to print this out. It'll print on a regular piece of paper. And so how are you guys feeling now that we've kind of crash coursed this about integrating group work into your class after this session? Oh, I'm going to turn off student pace mode. There you guys go. Now you should be back on this screen. All right. Okay. I wish I had more of you over here, but that's okay. You know what? I think the best thing to remember and note is that we are all new at this. We're all learning. Oh, no. I bet that's Manning. We're all learning and growing together, and we're gonna mess up. It's not gonna be perfect, and I think that's absolutely okay. But finding small ways and simple ways to have kids make connections is what we're all about. And so my last slide is I just would like a little bit of feedback from you guys. Do you guys still have any questions? And you can unmute, you can type, whatever you want to do at this point.
Just me personally, just for all the electives and the labs and stuff, that's the only other direction I would want to chat, but I'll just get that group together, how to best accomplish. It's not really a traditional classroom. So.
And then finally, my last slide is, can you give me some feedback? Is there anything that I can do to improve this session or further support you in maybe an additional section? So if you could type that into Pear Deck, I'm not going to show the responses. I just would love feedback from you guys on how I can best support you. And that's it. And I'm sorry I went a little long.
Hey, Steph.
Yes.
I have a question maybe for the English teachers, but how do we I haven't been successful in training students to go look at my comments on things I put in Canvas on their writing. So when they open it up in Google, like they've been doing for years, the comments would be in the margin on the side. But now they're on some PDF thing, right? So I don't know if you could help us, and you don't have to do it right now, but help us with some strategies so it's easier for students to see those comments when they go to revise their papers.
Yeah, it is clunky on Canvas, and it's hard that we're not face to face with them to walk them through that process. My biggest thing is always give them time. And so, and again, we can't trust that they're really, if they're remote, are they really doing it? It's hard to hold them accountable. One way to do that is to make them write a comment back to you in their grade. So they'll open it up, and my question might be, what were the trends of my comments? And they have to write 2 sentences back to me, and I will be able to see that on my end. So using the comment box on the side is one way to help with that. But no, it's not always the easiest thing to do. I also have a video for students to be able to see how to access their feedback. Part of the reason is it's tiny and on the right-hand side, and they have to click, click, click. And so if they don't know how to do it, it's really hard to get them to do it. So I'll ask Charlene if I can have 2 minutes, maybe during our Monday session, and I will show you how to do that. Good. Any other questions?
Steph, I'm probably a little like Beth, that I feel like I'm underutilizing, meaning I don't use at all, Google Meets. And I keep hearing people talking about it, and I just feel like I'm lost. Now I'm in the world of Zoom, and I could be better if I was doing Google Meets or both. So I'm just slow, as you know, but I'm wanting to wrap my brain around how to use that more successfully.
So I create most of my meets through calendar, and you can schedule at 3 o'clock. If you were meeting with the baritones and the tenors, you could schedule a 3 o'clock meeting with baritones, 3 o'clock meeting with tenors, and then it creates on calendar, you can create the meet right there and copy it and send it out.
Because that's the only way, like back last spring, the only way I was doing that was through the calendar. You're exactly right. That's the only way I ever set up a Google. I don't know, was I doing Hangout or Meet last spring? I don't know, whatever I was doing.
I think you were doing Meet.
Okay, great. I didn't know there was really a difference, but now I know. So I'm thinking out loud. I just need to be better at utilizing Google Meet as something that's supplemental to Zoom.
And
Beth, were you doing the same thing, Beth?
Yeah, absolutely.
Kiddos are really good at making their own Hangouts too, but if you want that accountability piece, I just recommend making a bunch of meets ahead of class, and adding it to the calendar so it's like right there for you.
So give me an example of when you go and tell the kids to make their own Google Hangout and do something. Like, give me just a really simple example of when you would say that.
So for example, if we were doing the art project, and I was letting them pick their groups in class, or, letting them pick their groups. Okay, on this document, you have to write your name next to which, the painting you're doing. And then you have to also hyperlink your Meet, or your Hangout link as well. So then I would have them just sign up for a topic. And once they sign up for the topic, then they would create their Hangout to be with their friends.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
What I notice with technology is that I always think the students know how to do things, and I think they do until we expect them to know how, and then suddenly they don't know how to do these things. and maybe some of them don't, because I had to, walk through something with a junior the other day, and I was very surprised at how much he did not know, and I don't think he was pretending. Okay, that's all.
But that's the key word in there is don't be afraid to fail. If an assignment flops, and you guys have a social and emotional conversation about life. Like, sorry.
This is what it looks like to fail, guys.
Sorry, Mike, if that's not the answer you want me to give them. But I think honestly what's most important is all of our mental health and sanity right now, and sometimes that's just going to win. So, and that's okay.
I agree wholeheartely. Hey, Rob, I'm going to show you real quick how I can't screen share.
Oh, I'll change it. Yes, you can.
Kick her out.
Yeah, give me control and I'm taking over this meeting. Let me jump to it real quick. Are you seeing my groups right here, Rob?
Yes.
Ooh. So this is, I don't remember how I hyperlinked these, but maybe Steph, you can help me, but I just created 11 hyperlink groups, and then I just typed the kids' names under here. And for the last 3 weeks, every time we have a group, we go to this page in my Canvas, and they jump in there, and then I jump in there. And technically, they could jump in any group they want, but they never do. They go to the right group, and then I can just click on any of these, and I can go right in. I can go like 9th dimension here. Can you see that now?
Yep.
And I can see who's in there. I can click join. So it's been super, super helpful.
How is it that you have access to get into all of their groups?
Technically, they have access to get into any of those groups if they wanted to as well. So I'm just jumping in and out of them.
Got it. Okay.
And they could do the same, but they don't.
Okay.
So Mike, did you create those groups for them, those links for them then?
I did. I took, 15 minutes, one class period or before a class, and I created them all. And then I had to train them a little bit on how to get to the right page and go in there. And sometimes one or two kids would forget, but it really it was pretty.
But you didn't do that in Calendar. Where did you do that?
Steph, can you help me remember? It was somewhere through my email. I was getting Google Meet links and then just copy them in.
Yeah, in your Gmail, on the right-hand side, some of you have like new Meet. And so, oh my gosh, guys, my email gets really scary on Fridays. I don't know why it happened, but there's a lot happening. So over here on the right-hand side, you can hit that plus new meeting, and then you can create the mate and copy it and paste it in. So you can do it that way.
Show that one more time, Steph. Where was that?
It's over on the right-hand side,
Yeah,
and if you don't have it, then you can play with your settings, but it just says new meeting, and then you can click it and create it.
That's exactly what I did. I just couldn't remember how I did it.
Oh. All right. Well, friends, I as you know, I'm always here via Zoom. So if you need anything, just reach out. You guys know I will probably answer you at 5 a.m.